Welcome back to Occupy the Media. I'm Jared Jacang Mayer, and I'm occupying the studio here with FSTV Executive Director Don Rojas and news producer Marcy Miranda. The 2012 election will be here before you know it. In this segment, we want to talk about the electoral issues that impact the 99%. And joining us from Oakland is Dom Apollon. He's a reporter with Colorlines.com. Thanks a lot for being with us, Dom.
Happy to be here.
Okay, and so along with writing for Colorlines.com, you also have a doctorate, I understand, and you've worked on a study. I'll get to that in a second, but let me try and cue it up first. Not everyone who's part of the 99% is out there protesting, so what ignites young activists to take an active role in the Occupy movement is a big question. But a new study released shows that family influences, frustration with the electoral system, and even feelings of inequality all are things that fire up young progressives. So Dom, you participated in this study with the Allied Applied Research Center. It's called Millennials, Activism, and Race. So just give us we'll talk about the bigger issues, but give us a rundown. What was the study and what did it find?
Yeah, so I actually serve as the research director for the Applied Research Center. We're a racial justice think tank.
Gotcha.
Based here in Oakland, California, and in New York, and we're a publisher actually of Colorlines.com, so I do write for Colorlines. So what we did is we conducted focus groups with young progressives from around the country. Some who were involved in Occupy, about half, about 70% were involved in Occupy, about 30% were not involved in Occupy. We looked at people of color, white progressives. We looked at folks from Atlanta, Portland, Oakland, New York, and
but they were all
Baltimore.
primarily younger people, right? And so this is the big question, right? That everyone was asked that everyone asked about the Occupy movement in general, but also young people. What actually motivates them to take action and maybe even be involved in a sustained way with certain organizations or movements? So what did you find?
Exactly. That's what we wanted to find is what motivates young people to get involved in progressive organizations or causes like Occupy. And so what we found, we looked at differences between young people of color who are progressives and white progressives. We found actually for all progressives, their personal and family experience was the key. We asked them what were the top three. We gave them a list of about 9 or 10 different factors, like your personal family experience, the Occupy movement itself, your community's experience, a book or an author, your friends, peers, etc. The most popular answer was the personal and family experience, and this was especially so for young people of color. Almost like 80% really of them listed that as one of their top 3 influences, whereas just a basic majority of the young white progressives felt the same way. So
personal and family experiences. So then, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's not necessarily a certain politician or even maybe a certain niche issue isn't the main driver for what gets young progressives out there organizing or really motivates them. And so what is it about the personal and family experiences that makes it more powerful or at least unique to young people and getting them motivated?
Well, I think for some of the young people of color in particular that we talk to, ones who have immigrant experiences or their families are from immigrant experiences, have really helped to again, their experiences of injustice within their families have helped motivate them to become more involved and engaged. They're also listed, young people of color listed their community experience as their community experience with, say, injustice as a key factor, whereas, again, white progressives didn't say their community's experience so much. They listed their friends and peers, perhaps a book or an author.
And so the study is called Millennials, Activism, and Race, and we'll continue talking about this a little bit later on, so stick around, Dom. But we want you to join the conversation. Give us a call at 877-575-FSTV. Post a comment on our Facebook page. Our topic for today's show is immigration issues. Should politicians make immigration policies a more pressing issue? The lines are open. So even though NATO protests may be over, Chicago remains in the spotlight. Chicago's school teachers, public school teachers in Chicago have been protesting in the downtown streets. They are in the negotiation process right now for a new contract, but a bargaining impasse could lead to the first teacher strike in that city since 1987. So Marcy, what is getting the teachers in Chicago so worked up?
You know, a lot of things, mostly stemming from less funding. You know, they're saying this new contract doesn't make improvements to their salary. It tries to extend the school day. You know, it doesn't really. They're also protesting the fact that now they're spending, that the city is spending more money on charter schools than it is in putting money into truly public schools. And teachers are saying enough is enough. We're educators. We're here to help, you know, the younger students, the younger generation, be the next leaders. And we can't do that if you keep tying our hands and you keep taking money away from our schools and you make it harder for us to do our job. Another of the big points that they take issue with is the fact that that the city is trying to tie teacher performance to pay and saying, well, let's take these standardized tests, and if you're a great teacher, you'll get paid more than if you're not a great teacher, but a lot of
And these are policies, controversial policies that we're seeing being implemented in districts, mostly urban districts across the country. Right. And so, Don, what do you make of this particular one? I mean, the teachers actually being out there in the streets in a large capacity is something something notable.
Well, you know, the teachers' unions across the country tend to be pretty activist in their orientation. So I'm not surprised that the Chicago teachers have taken to the street. In fact, a lot of Chicago teachers were also involved in the anti-NATO protests a week before. The problem here is not with the teachers or the unions. The problem here is a lack of resources being funneled into the public education systems in big cities like Chicago, New York, Minneapolis, and other cities around the country. And it's the direct reflection of the economic crisis that has been visited on municipalities and on states. They are broke. They just don't have the money. And unfortunately, the teachers and the unions are being scapegoated for what is a systemic, you know, talking about this earlier on, but this is a systemic economic crisis.
And so drawing the lines between what you know, education and also the financial crisis that Occupy Wall Street has been so focused on. Right. But let's take a few minutes to hear from our viewers. This is our telephone mic check, and we're taking calls from the 99%. Mic check! Mic check! Okay, we have Andy on the line from Pennsylvania who wants to talk about confiscated books. Andy, you're on Occupy the Media.
How are you? How are you today?
We're doing great.
A quick comment on the disappearance of the books. I think every municipality and city has a code that if the police find something, they're obligated to keep the property until it's reclaimed. In this case, if they confiscated the books, this could be treated just as lost property. They're obligated to keep the property somewhere for a certain amount of time, whether it's a month, 2 months, until somebody can reclaim it. I mean,
that's a good point. So even if municipalities confiscate certain property, impound a car, for example, they're still obligated to hold that property until the person can come obtain it.
It's private property. Legally, it's still private property until somebody can claim it. It's sort of like leaving something in a locker. They have to wait a certain number of months and then put it into the newspaper and then sell it in a public sale.
Well, a great point, Andy. Thanks a lot for calling.
Yeah, but Andy's point is well taken. But in this particular case in New York City, 4/5 of the books that were confiscated were actually destroyed, and could not be replaced. So this is a slightly different issue. And what is the city of New York going to do to replace those destroyed books?
And as they mentioned, also laptops, other equipment. I mean, this wasn't just a pile of books. They actually had a functioning library there.
Right. If I could bring the conversation back to the topic we were talking about earlier, and this study that was done by the Applied Research Center. Dom, I actually want to ask you a question. Have you found anything to point to the sustainability of these activists, young activists, staying active throughout their lifetime? I mean, we know now why they're starting to become active, but do we have any indication of how long they will stay active for?
You know, that's a great question. In some of the sessions that we had, we talked to folks who were, again, involved in Occupy, the folks who were involved in social justice organizations as well. And some of the folks that are involved in social justice organizations are actually getting kind of burned out. You know, they feel like they're working 80 hours, they're working maybe in multiple organizations, and they're actually concerned about, working, say, 40 hours, 40 hours a week, we fought for this, if you look at the history of struggle, in terms of labor, fighting for 40 hours a week, 40-hour weeks, and we're working 80 hours, it's unsustainable. So I think they're aware of that, and they're also actually concerned about what they call the non-profit industrial complex as well.
And so we'll actually post a link to that study on our Facebook page so everyone can go there and dig a little bit deeper, because there, as Dom was saying, there's a lot there. So Dom Apollon, reporter with colorlines.com, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So on Occupy the Media, our mission is to share your stories. If you have a video you'd like to see on the program, email it to us or post it on our Facebook page. In our video this week, sometimes we need to put ourselves in other people's shoes, or we'll only see the world from our own eyes. Well, this 7,000-pound bull doesn't wear shoes, but it can still give us the clearest view of Occupy Wall Street's evolution. Here's My Life in the Canyon of Heroes by filmmaker Mark Nicholas.
The situation? I've been under 24-hour police protection since last fall. You see, back in 1989, just before Christmas, I was impounded and put in a warehouse in Queens. They called me Gorilla Rot. Odd name. Arturo said I was a gift to the U.S., a bull for all the people who worked in this country. But how did I become the bad guy, and a symbol of what's wrong with our system? I was born as a defiant act of self-expression against government, and Wall Street had no use for me back then. They had me carted off. After I became popular and they got rich, suddenly I became their mascot, and now government wants to protect me. There's even a live web camera on me 24 hours a day. It's a little creepy. I try to stay out of politics, but I'll tell you this, there aren't many of those 1%ers with their suits and briefcases waiting in line to take photos with me. Anyway, I'll be happy when the police finally leave, my life returns to normal. I chuckle when I see the cops posing for photos right next to me. Our tax dollars hard at work, protecting a 7,000-pound bronze bull.
Hello, I'm Antoinette June with another Occupy update. Hackers Anonymous is calling for the national occupation of everything on Monday, November 5th. For more details, please visit meetup.com/Occupy Together.